when you look at all these goals, for net zero carbon emissions and all these just random numbers that Governor Inslee threw out, and then you actually sit down and you try to figure out, okay, what would it take to reach those goals? How much wind energy? How many battery storage facilities would we have to build? What Discovery Institute found out is the goals aren't feasible. There's no possible way that we're actually going to be able to reach the goals the governor set. Meanwhile, our taxes are going, to the tune of hundreds of millions and really billions of dollars through the Climate Commitment Act and other initiatives into reaching goals that aren't feasible. And so what's the point? Just to make some people feel good, to make people wealthy? What is it? So that report that we discussed in September 2024 was one of the things that led to Discovery Institute producing a documentary that's out this week, fitting on Earth Week, called What Does It Cost? The director of that documentary is going to join us momentarily, but first, here's the trailer.
The Pacific Northwest is justifiably famous for its spectacularly beautiful scenery and natural beauty.
We now have 12 million people living here. They want to enjoy life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It means housing, heating, cooling, and transportation. All of that requires affordable, reliable, and abundant energy.
In mid-2019, Governor Inslee signed SB 5116 into law, which set 2030 for reaching net zero and 2045 to reach absolute zero.
Action looks like a 100% clean electrical grid in the state of Washington.
In 2021, Oregon enacted an even more aggressive mandate,
House Bill 2021, which will move Oregon to 100% clean electricity by 2040. The most ambitious and most aggressive clean energy timeline in the nation, hands down.
Why were these unprecedented laws passed in the Pacific Northwest? We were told the point of all this was to defeat global climate change. But what is the actual result?
It will have no impact whatsoever on global temperatures or global climate.
But then it's even worse because at times wind and solar may not be generating any electricity at all.
You would have to oversize the system by so much that it becomes impractical.
No one seemed to notice, but something critical was missing. One fundamental question that all of us would ask when thinking about any big idea that would take huge effort and hard work to accomplish. The missing question and the troubling answer is what this documentary is all about.
So we got a chance to chat with Ken Peterson, the director of What Does It Cost, which is available now to watch. We talked to him a little bit about his personal investment in all of this and some of the interesting takeaways from his work on this.
With respect to Oregon and Washington, solar and wind, if we were to co-locate the solar and the wind resources, so you'd put solar on the ground, you'd put at the same place, you'd put wind in the air, you would have to use 25% of the entire landmass of Eastern Oregon and Washington in order to accommodate those amounts of installations. And actually, I believe that that is a low point because you can't use all of the land mass because we've got national parks, we've got, other areas that are set aside, wilderness areas, and then you've got things that are on the sides of mountains, some cities and so on. So when you do that, it's got to be well over a third of the land mass would be filled with solar panels and wind towers. And that is just, it's hard to see how that in the world could happen in the time frame that's going to take place.
Well, and even if it did, what would the impact be on global temperatures? I mean, if that's the goal, right, to save our planet and, help with climate change. And I mean, even if Washington State, let's just say by some miracle, they're like meeting all these goals towards the net zero plan, does it have a significant impact on global climate change?
Well, that's the really distressing part about this is in the documentary, we go into why were these laws passed, and you're right. The advertisement was, we're going to fight climate change. We're going to defeat climate change. And when you get through with all this, and we interviewed the authors of the Discovery Institute paper. And when you get through with all this and you take the CO2 savings, the total savings going to zero by 2040, actually, and then you play it out in the EPA models, and you say, well, what would the difference be in global temperature by 2100? It is 3/1000ths of 1 degree. In other words, it is imperceptible, and in fact, it is even not measurable you can't look at a thermometer and say, oh yeah, well, there's a 3/1000th of a degree. So not only is it costly, as you indicated, but it is for naught. It doesn't do anything.
Check out that interview on Sundays with subscribers by becoming a subscriber today.